David Chin was walking to his car when he heard screaming. Two men were threatening a single mom and her daughter near the school. David didn't hesitate, he ran to help. 2 gunshots later he was bleeding on the ground. That night, military trucks surrounded his house. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. David Chin worked 3 jobs to keep his 8-year-old son Jake happy. The auto repair shop during the day, delivery driver at night, and weekend cleaning at the community center. His wife had left them 2 years ago, saying she couldn't handle the poor life anymore. "It's just us against the world, buddy," David would tell Jake every morning while making breakfast with whatever was left in their small fridge. Jake never complained. He was a quiet, thoughtful boy who understood that his dad worked hard for them. "I love you, Dad," Jake would say, hugging David's legs before school. 3 blocks away lived Maria Santos, a single mother fighting her own battles. Her ex-husband had disappeared, leaving her with 4-year-old Sophia and a mountain of debt. Maria worked double shifts at the diner, but it was never enough. "Mommy tired," little Sophia would say, patting her mother's face when Maria came home exhausted. "I'm okay, mi amor," Maria would whisper, though tears often fell when Sophia wasn't looking. David and Maria had never spoken, but they recognized each other at the grocery store, both counting coins, both choosing the cheapest options, both carrying the weight of single parenthood. It was a Tuesday afternoon when David picked up Jake from school. The elementary school was in a rough part of town, but it was all they could afford. As they walked toward their old Honda, David heard shouting from the playground. "Give me your money, lady," a man's voice yelled. David looked toward the sound and saw Maria Santos backing away from 2 men near the school fence. Little Sophia clung to her mother's leg, crying. "Please, I don't have anything," Maria said, her voice shaking. "I just came to pick up my daughter." One of the men grabbed Maria's purse. The other reached for Sophia. "Pretty little girl," the second man sneered. "Maybe we take her instead." David's blood turned to ice. No child should ever be threatened like that. "Jake, get in the car and lock the doors," David whispered to his son. "Dad, what's happening?" "Just do what I say, buddy. Call 911. David ran toward the playground. He had no weapon, no plan, just the desperate need to protect a mother and child. "Hey!" David yelled. "Leave them alone." The 2 men turned. One pulled out a gun. "Walk away, hero," the gunman said. "This ain't your business." David kept walking toward them. "It became my business when you scared a little girl." Maria's eyes went wide. She didn't know this man, but he was risking his life for her and Sophia. "You want to die for strangers?" The gunman laughed. David was now close enough to see Sophia's tears. She reminded him of Jake when he was younger, innocent, scared, needing protection. "I want to live in a world where children are safe," David said. The gunman fired. David felt the bullet hit his shoulder, spinning him around. The second shot caught him in the chest. As he fell, he saw the 2 men run away, dropping Maria's purse. "Oh my God!" Maria screamed, running to David. "Sophia, stay back." David lay on the ground, blood spreading across his shirt. Maria pressed her hands against his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. "Why did you help us?" Maria asked, tears streaming down her face. "You don't even know us." David looked up at her with fading vision. "Because Sophia deserves to feel safe, just like Jake." "Jake? Who's Jake?" "My son, in the car. Please, make sure he's okay." Maria looked toward the parking lot and saw a little boy in an old Honda, crying and talking on a phone. Her heart broke. This man had left his own child to save hers. Sirens wailed in the distance. Maria held David's hand. "What's your name?" she whispered. "David. David Chin." "David, I'm Maria. Thank you for saving my daughter. Thank you for being brave." David smiled weakly. "Tell Jake. I love him." Then everything went black. David woke up 4 days later in the hospital. His chest was wrapped in bandages and his left arm was in a sling. The first thing he saw was Jake sleeping in a chair next to his bed. "Jake," David whispered. Jake's eyes opened immediately. "Dad, you're awake." He climbed onto the bed carefully, hugging David gently. "Are you okay, buddy? Who's been taking care of you?" "Miss Maria," Jake said. "She's been here every day. She brought me clothes and food and stayed with me when I was scared." David's eyes filled with tears. The woman he had saved was now taking care of his son. The door opened and Maria walked in carrying coffee and a bag from McDonald's. When she saw David awake, she started crying. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving Sophia. Thank you for being the kind of man who runs toward danger instead of away from it. David tried to sit up. How is Sophia? She's okay because of you. She asks about the nice man who helped us every day. And Jake? Has he been any trouble? Maria smiled through her tears. He's been wonderful. David, he told me you work 3 jobs just to take care of him. He's so proud of you. Over the next week, Maria visited every day. She brought homemade food, helped Jake with homework, and sat with David when the pain was too much. She had taken time off from the diner, even though she couldn't afford it. You don't have to do this, David told her. You have your own problems. David, you took bullets for my daughter. This is the least I can do. Detective Sarah Martinez was investigating the shooting when she discovered something disturbing. The 2 men who had attacked Maria weren't random criminals. They were part of a larger operation targeting single mothers in the area. Mr. Chin, Detective Martinez said during one of her visits, the men who shot you are named Rick Torres and Miguel Santos. They've been robbing single mothers for months, but this was their first time threatening to take a child. David's anger flared. They were going to kidnap Sophia? We think so. They had a van parked nearby with restraints inside. You didn't just save Maria from a robbery, Mr. Chin. You probably saved Sophia from being taken. Maria, who was in the room, gasped and covered her mouth. There's more, Detective Martinez continued. We've discovered that this ring has connections to human trafficking. These men target vulnerable single mothers because they think no one will look for them or their children. David felt sick. How many families have they hurt? At least 12 that we know of. But Mr. Chin, your actions that day led to arrests. Torres and Santos are talking, trying to get lighter sentences. They've given us information about the whole operation. Good, David said firmly. No more families should go through what Maria did. Detective Martinez nodded. There's something else you should know. The story of what you did has spread. Local news wants to interview you. People are calling you a hero. David shook his head. I'm not a hero. I'm just a dad who couldn't stand to see a child threatened. That's exactly what makes you a hero, Mr. Chin. News of David's heroic act spread quickly through the community. The story was simple but powerful. A single father working 3 jobs had risked his life to save a single mother and her daughter from kidnappers. People were moved by the story, but what touched them most was learning about David and Jake's struggles. The community center where David worked started a fund for his medical bills. The auto repair shop set up a donation box. Even the elementary school organized a fundraiser. Dad, people keep bringing us food and presents, Jake told David excitedly. Mrs. Johnson from down the street brought us groceries. Mr. Kim from the corner store said we don't have to pay for anything for a month. David was overwhelmed. He had spent so long taking care of Jake alone, he had forgotten what it felt like to have people care about them. Maria organized much of the community support. She had quit her job at the diner to stay with Jake during David's recovery, and she was determined to help the man who had saved her daughter. The neighborhood is different now, she told David. People are talking to each other, looking out for each other. What you did reminded everyone that we're not alone. 2 weeks after David came home from the hospital, something strange happened. Jake was playing in their small front yard when he saw a line of military vehicles coming down their street. Dad, Jake called. There are army trucks outside. David came to the window, confused. 3 Humvees and a military transport truck had stopped in front of their house. Soldiers in uniform were getting out. Stay inside, Jake, David said, worried. He opened the front door carefully. A tall man in military uniform approached. His name tag read Colonel Williams. Mr. David Chin? The colonel asked. Yes, sir. Is something wrong? Colonel Williams saluted. Mr. Chin, I'm Colonel James Williams. I'm here representing the United States Army and a very grateful family. David was confused. I don't understand. Mr. Chin, do you know who Maria Santos is to me? David shook his head. She's my sister. David's eyes went wide. Colonel Williams continued. Maria called me the night you were shot. She told me how a stranger had risked his life to save her and my niece Sophia. Mr. Chin, I've been deployed overseas for 8 months. I couldn't protect my sister, but you did. Tears filled the colonel's eyes. I've served in 3 combat zones, Mr. Chin. I've seen soldiers show incredible bravery under fire. But what you did, running toward armed men with no training, no weapon, no backup, that's a different kind of courage. Jake peeked out from behind David. Colonel Williams knelt down. You must be Jake. Your dad is a hero, son. Jake smiled proudly. I know. He takes care of me and helps other people too. Colonel Williams stood and signaled to his soldiers. They began unloading boxes from the trucks. Mr. Chin, my unit took up a collection when they heard what you did. Soldiers from around the world contributed. We know you work 3 jobs to take care of Jake, and we know you're facing medical bills. David watched in amazement as soldiers carried box after box into his yard. Colonel, this is too much. I just did what anyone would do. No, Mr. Chin. Most people would have called the police and stayed safe. You put yourself between dangerous men and a child. That's what soldiers do. We run toward danger to protect the innocent. One of the soldiers, a young sergeant, approached David. Sir, I'm a single father too. My daughter is the same age as your son. When I heard your story, I thought about how I'd want someone to protect her if I wasn't there. Thank you for being that someone for Maria's daughter. The boxes contained more than David could have imagined. There were clothes for Jake, toys, books, and gift cards to grocery stores and restaurants. There was a laptop for Jake's schoolwork and a tablet loaded with educational games. But the biggest surprise was a check for $50,000 from the Military Relief Fund. Colonel, I can't accept this much money, David said, his hands shaking. Mr. Chin, this money comes from soldiers who understand sacrifice. They wanted to help a man who showed the same courage they show every day. Use it to take care of Jake, to get the medical care you need, and maybe to help other families in your community. Maria arrived with Sophia just as the soldiers were finishing. When Sophia saw Colonel Williams, she ran to him. Uncle James? Sophia cried, jumping into his arms. Hola, Princesa, Colonel Williams said, hugging his niece tight. I missed you so much. Sophia pointed to David. That's the nice man who helped me and Mommy. Colonel Williams carried Sophia over to David. Sophia, this is Mr. David. He's a very brave man. Sophia looked at David with big, serious eyes. Thank you for helping us. The bad men were scary. David knelt down to Sophia's level. You're welcome, sweetheart. No one should ever scare you. Sophia hugged David around the neck. I love you, Mr. David. David's eyes filled with tears. This little girl's love meant more to him than all the money and recognition in the world. Over the following months, David, Jake, Maria, and Sophia became inseparable. Maria helped David manage his recovery and finances. David helped Maria find a better job with regular hours. The children became like siblings, playing together every day after school. Dad, Jake said one evening, I like having Maria and Sophia around. It feels like we're a real family. David smiled. He had been thinking the same thing. Maria had brought warmth and joy into their lives. She was kind, hardworking, and devoted to her daughter. And Sophia adored Jake, following him around like a little shadow. What would you think if I asked Maria to marry me? David asked quietly. Jake's face lit up. Really? Then Sophia would be my sister? Yes, buddy. She would be your sister. I would love that, Dad. And I think Mommy would want you to be happy. David had worried about Jake's reaction. His ex-wife had left them, but Jake still remembered her. David was relieved that Jake was ready to accept Maria into their family. A week later, David took Maria for a walk in the park where they had first met as neighbors. Sophia and Jake were playing on the swings nearby. Maria, David began nervously, these past few months have been the happiest of my life. Maria smiled. Mine too. You and Jake brought so much joy to Sophia and me. I know we've both been hurt before. I know trust is hard. But Maria, I love you. I love Sophia like she's my own daughter. Would you consider marrying me? David pulled out a simple ring he had bought with part of the money from the soldiers. Maria's eyes filled with tears. David, you saved my life in more ways than one. You showed me what a good man looks like. You showed Sophia what a father should be. Yes, I'll marry you. They kissed while Jake and Sophia cheered from the playground. Colonel Williams returned from deployment just in time for David and Maria's wedding. The ceremony was small but beautiful, held at the community center where David used to work as a cleaner. The whole neighborhood attended. Detective Martinez was there, along with nurses from the hospital. The soldiers from David's regiment sent a video message of congratulations. Even the principal from Jake and Sophia's school came to celebrate. David, Colonel Williams said during his speech, you married my sister, which makes you my brother. But you were already family the day you took those bullets for her and Sophia. After the ceremony, Colonel Williams pulled David aside. I have a wedding gift for you, he said, handing David an envelope. Inside was a deed to a house, a real house with 4 bedrooms, a yard, and a garage. Colonel, this is too much, David said, overwhelmed. David, my unit is being transferred to a base in Colorado. I was going to sell the house, but I'd rather give it to family. Maria and Sophia need stability, and Jake needs a place to grow up. This house has been in our family for 20 years. I want it to stay that way. David couldn't speak. He just hugged his new brother-in-law. Moving into the house felt like a dream. Jake and Sophia each had their own bedroom, though Sophia usually ended up sleeping in Jake's room because she was afraid of the dark. "This is the biggest house I've ever lived in," Jake told everyone who would listen. David was able to quit 2 of his 3 jobs. With the money from the soldiers and no rent to pay, he could afford to work just at the auto repair shop. This meant more time with his family. Maria started nursing school, something she had always dreamed of but never thought possible. The community rallied around her, offering babysitting and study help. "I want to help people like the doctors and nurses helped you," Maria told David. "I want to give back to the community that saved us." Sophia thrived in their new life. She was no longer the scared little girl who had been threatened by kidnappers. She was confident, happy, and adored her new big brother Jake. Daddy David, Sophia called him now. She had started using this name naturally, and it made David's heart swell every time. Jake flourished too. Having a mother figure in Maria and a little sister in Sophia gave him confidence and purpose. He helped Sophia with her homework and protected her at school. "My family is bigger now," Jake told his teacher. "I have a mom and a sister and a dad who's a hero." A year after the shooting, David and Maria started a support group for single parents in their community. They met every Saturday at the community center, sharing resources, childcare, and emotional support. "We know how hard it is to raise children alone," David told the group. "But we also know that community can make all the difference." The group grew from 5 parents to over 30. They organized carpools, shared meals, and helped each other find jobs and housing. When one parent was sick, others stepped in to help with their children. Detective Martinez often attended meetings to talk about safety and crime prevention. "What David did was heroic," she told the parents, "but we need to work together to make our community safer for everyone." The group also worked with Colonel Williams, who visited whenever he could. He taught self-defense classes and helped connect military families with the civilian community. "Service doesn't end when you leave the military," Colonel Williams said. "We all have a duty to protect and help each other." 3 years after the shooting, Sophia was 7 years old and thriving in school. But she still remembered that scary day when bad men had threatened her and her mother. "Daddy David," Sophia said one evening, "why did those bad men want to hurt us?" David sat down beside her on the couch. This was a conversation he had been dreading but knew was necessary. "Sometimes, sweetheart, there are people in the world who make bad choices. They hurt others because they're angry or scared or lost. But you weren't scared when you helped us." "Oh, I was very scared, Sophia. I was terrified. But sometimes, when someone we love is in danger, we have to be brave even when we're scared." Sophia thought about this. "Do you love me, Daddy David? More than anything in the world, Princessa? Is that why you helped us? Because you loved me?" David's eyes filled with tears. "I loved you the moment I saw you, Sophia. Before I even knew your name, you were already in my heart." Sophia hugged David tight. "I'm glad you were brave, Daddy David. I'm glad you saved us." "I'm glad too, sweetheart. Very glad." Jake was now 11 years old and understood more about what his father had done that day. At school he often heard kids talking about their heroes, famous athletes, movie stars, or superheroes. "My dad is my hero," Jake told his class during a presentation about people they admired. "He saved a mom and her little girl from bad men who wanted to hurt them. He got shot, but he didn't care because protecting children was more important than protecting himself." Jake's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, was moved by his presentation. "Jake, your father sounds like an amazing man. But you know what? I think you're going to be just like him." At home, Jake asked David about that day. "Dad, were you scared I would lose you when you ran to help Maria and Sophia?" David sat down with his son. This was a heavy conversation for an 11-year-old, but Jake deserved an honest answer. "Yes, Jake. I was scared you would lose me. But I was more scared that little girl would lose her mom, or that her mom would lose her. I thought about how I would feel if someone threatened you and I knew I had to help." "I understand, Dad. If someone was hurting Sophia now, I would want to protect her too." David hugged his son. "That's because you have a good heart, buddy. But remember, the best way to protect people is to be smart and get help from adults. You don't have to be the one running toward danger. But if I had to, I would. Because that's what our family does, we help people." David was proud of his son's compassionate heart, but he hoped Jake would never have to make the choice David had made. 5 years after the shooting, Detective Martinez organized a reunion of everyone connected to the case. The 2 criminals, Torres and Santos, were serving long prison sentences. Their information had led to the breakup of the trafficking ring and the rescue of several children. "Mr. Chin," Detective Martinez said at the reunion, "I want you to know that your actions that day saved more lives than just Maria and Sophia's." The arrest that followed rescued 12 children from traffickers. David was amazed. 12 children. Yes. The ring was planning to expand their operation. Your intervention stopped them and led to the biggest human trafficking bust in our city's history. At the reunion were several of the families who had been helped by the arrests. Parents thanked David with tears in their eyes, and children who had been rescued played with Jake and Sophia. "I had no idea," David told Maria that night. "I thought I was just helping you and Sophia." "That's what makes what you did so special," Maria replied. "You didn't help us for recognition or reward. You helped us because it was right. And that choice rippled out to save so many others." Colonel Williams was finally transferred back to their city after 5 years overseas. He had been promoted to general and was now stationed at a nearby base permanently. "I'm tired of being an uncle and brother-in-law from a distance," he told David and Maria. "I want to be here for Sophia's school plays and Jake's baseball games." General Williams bought a house 3 blocks away and became a constant presence in their lives. He taught Jake how to throw a football and took Sophia to father-daughter dances at school. "Uncle James is like a second daddy," Sophia told her friends. For David, having General Williams nearby was like gaining a father figure. His own parents had died when Jake was a baby, and he had raised his son largely alone until meeting Maria. "You gave me my sister and niece back," General Williams told David. "Let me help give you the family support you never had." By the time Jake turned 16, he had grown into a thoughtful, brave young man. He volunteered at the community center, tutored younger kids, and looked out for bullied students at school. Sophia, now 12, was confident and kind. She organized charity drives at school and always stood up for kids who were being picked on. "These children are growing up to be leaders," Maria told David one evening as they watched Jake help Sophia with a school project. "They learned from watching you," David replied. "They learned that helping others isn't just nice, it's necessary." Jake had decided he wanted to become a police officer like Detective Martinez. "I want to protect families like you protected ours, Dad." Sophia wanted to become a doctor. "I want to help hurt people get better like the doctors helped Daddy David." Both children were motivated by the same desire that had driven David that day in the playground, the need to protect and help others. 10 years after the shooting, the community center where David used to work was renamed the David Chin Community Center. David was embarrassed by the honor, but the neighborhood insisted. "This man represents everything our community stands for," the mayor said at the dedication ceremony. "Courage, compassion, and commitment to others." The renovated center included a childcare facility that Maria now managed, having completed nursing school and worked at the hospital for several years. David had started a mechanics program that taught job skills to unemployed parents. "We want to make sure no parent has to work 3 jobs just to survive," David explained to reporters. The center also housed the Single Parent Support Group, which had grown into a full nonprofit organization. They provided everything from emergency childcare to job training to financial counseling. General Williams helped secure grants and donations from military organizations around the country. "Civilians and military, we're all part of the same community," he said. 15 years after David took those bullets, the impact of his actions was still spreading. Jake, now 23, was a rookie police officer who had already saved 2 children from an abusive home. Sophia, 19, was pre-med at the State University and volunteered at a children's hospital. But the influence went beyond his own children. The community center had helped over 500 families find stability. The Single Parent Support Group had chapters in 12 cities. Detective Martinez had written a book about community policing that was used in training programs nationwide. "One moment of courage created a wave of change that's still growing," General Williams observed at a family dinner. David, now in his 50s with gray in his hair, still worked at the auto repair shop because he loved fixing things. But his real job was being a father, husband, and community leader. "I never planned any of this," David told a group of social work students who visited the center. "I just saw a child in danger and reacted. But that's the point, we all have moments where we can choose to help or look away. Choose to help." On the 20th anniversary of the shooting, the city declared it Community Heroes Day. Schools closed early so children could attend events celebrating ordinary people who do extraordinary things. The keynote speaker was Sophia Santosjan, now Dr. Sophia Santosjan, a pediatric surgeon who had just completed her residency. 20 years ago, a man I had never met saved my life," Sophia told the crowd. But David Chin didn't just save me from kidnappers that day. He saved me from believing the world was a scary place where no one would help you. Sophia looked out at the audience, which included hundreds of families who had been helped by the community center. My daddy David taught me that heroes aren't people with superpowers. Heroes are ordinary people who choose to care about strangers. Heroes are people who run toward trouble instead of away from it. Heroes are people who believe that everyone deserves to be safe and loved. Jake, now a detective like Martinez had been, stood and applauded his sister. David sat in the front row with Maria, both of them crying as they watched the woman their little Sophia had become. After the ceremony, the family gathered at home for dinner. For generations now, David and Maria, Jake and his wife expecting their first child, Sophia and her fiancé, and General Williams with his new granddaughter from his son's marriage. Abuelo David, Sophia's 5-year-old niece said, using the Spanish word for grandfather, tell us the story about when you were brave. David looked around the table at his family, the family that had grown from one moment of choosing love over fear. Once upon a time, David began, there was a daddy who loved his little boy very much. One day he saw another mommy and her little girl who needed help. As David told the story one more time, he realized that it wasn't really his story anymore. It belonged to everyone who had chosen to help someone else, everyone who had decided that kindness was worth the risk. The bullet wounds in his chest had healed long ago, but the love that had motivated him to take those bullets kept growing, spreading to new hearts, inspiring new acts of courage. In the end, that's what heroes really do, they don't just save people once. They inspire others to save people too. And the saving never ends. 25 years later, the David Chin Community Center serves 3 neighboring cities. The Single Parent Support Network has helped over 10,000 families. Jake Chin is now chief of police, Sophia Santos Chin runs the pediatric wing of the city's largest hospital, and David and Maria are grandparents to 8 children who are all being raised to believe that helping others is the most important thing you can do. Every year on the anniversary of the shooting, the family visits the playground where it all started. There's a small memorial there now, not to David's heroism, but to the idea that ordinary people can change the world through simple acts of love. The inscription reads, "In memory of all the heroes who run toward danger to protect others, and in honor of all the families who choose love over fear." David Chin never wanted to be famous. He just wanted to keep children safe. In the end he did both.